Think about a nation's identity. We often picture something permanent, almost carved in stone. But what if it's less like a statue and more like a river, always being reshaped by new currents? In this explainer, we're going to take apart one really powerful story about how that kind of change happens, piece by piece, just to see how it's built.
So, what's the glue? What really holds a national identity together? Is it a shared history, a common language, or maybe it's the story a country tells about itself? We're going to dig into one of those stories, a very specific one about national transformation, to see exactly how it works.
You know, the really convincing arguments, the ones that stick with you, they usually have a surprisingly simple structure. And the one we're looking at today, well, it's built on 3 core pillars. By taking a close look at each one, we can really start to understand the architecture of the whole idea.
All right, so the first pillar. This isn't about feelings or abstract ideas. It's about cold, hard numbers. This whole narrative kicks off with a demographic foundation, a story told through data that really sets the stage for everything that comes after.
Every compelling story needs an anchor, right? That one central idea that grabs your attention. For this viewpoint, that anchor is one very specific forecast about what the future holds.
And here it is. This is the big one. The core claim is that the UK's Muslim population is projected to double in just 2 decades. Think about that for a second. A doubling. That single dramatic forecast is really the engine that drives this entire narrative forward.
Okay, so we've started with numbers, which can feel a little abstract, right? Now the argument shifts gears to something much more tangible. Things you can actually see and touch. This next pillar is all about the symbols that make up a nation's visual and cultural landscape. And what this viewpoint does is set up a really stark contrast. On one side, you have these classic, historic symbols of British identity. Think royal castles, the landmarks you see on postcards. And on the other side, it points to the rise of new community hubs, specifically the growing number of mosques across the country.
And to really ground this idea, to make it feel less like a vague trend and more like a concrete fact, the argument presents a number. It claims there are over 1,800 mosques in England. This figure is used as a tangible, physical measure of that cultural and visual shift we were just talking about.
All right, so we've got the demographic piece and we've got the cultural symbols. The third and final pillar of this argument takes us from the visible world of buildings into the invisible structures of power. We're talking about the legal system.
Now, before we see the next number, let's just make sure we're on the same page about what we're talking about. So what is a Sharia court? Essentially, it's a body that uses Islamic law to help settle disputes, usually personal things like marriage or finances, and it operates alongside the main state legal system.
And, you guessed it, just like before, there's a specific number attached to this to make it feel real. The narrative claims there are over 80 Sharia courts operating in the UK. This is presented as clear evidence of a kind of parallel legal system taking shape. Okay, let's pause and zoom out for a second. It's really important to see that these aren't just 3 random points. They're connected. They are woven together very deliberately to create one single cohesive story about how a nation is changing.
So, just to recap the architecture of this argument we've been taking apart. Step 1, start with a big demographic projection. Step 2, connect that to a visible change in cultural symbols. And step 3, link all of that to the growth of parallel legal structures. You see how each piece logically follows the last? It's a powerful 1-2-3 punch.
But here's the thing. Those 3 pillars, they're not the destination. They're the setup. They are all constructed to build towards one central and pretty provocative question.
And this is it. This is the end game of the entire argument. All those pieces, the numbers, the buildings, the courts, they all funnel down into this one question. Is the UK losing control of its own future? It's a powerful way to frame the whole conversation, and ultimately, it leaves that question hanging in the air for you to think about.
Thanks for viewing the video brought to you by The Last Narrative. Please share and subscribe if you enjoyed it.